Two of the most recognizable voices in American music share more than a stage. They share blood. And almost nobody saw it coming. For over 3 decades, the public story was simple. Dolly Parton, country music royalty, became Miley Cyrus's godmother back in the early 90s through a friendship with Miley's father, Billy Ray. It was a Hollywood arrangement, sure, but it never felt like one. Dolly showed up on Hannah Montana. Miley introduced an entirely new generation to Jolene. They shared a stage for a New Year's Eve special. They both landed spots on Beyoncé's Cowboy Carter. On paper, it read like industry synergy. In practice, it read like family. Turns out, it actually is family. According to a genealogical report from ancestry.com, Miley and Dolly are 7th cousins once removed, not close enough to show up at the same Thanksgiving table growing up, but close enough that somewhere in the branches of 2 family trees, the roots cross. Here's where it gets interesting. The connection traces back to the 1700s, to a man named John Bricky, Dolly's 6th great-grandfather, Miley's 7th great-grandfather. Same guy. 2 different lines splitting off from him, generations apart, both eventually settling within 20 miles of each other in what we now call the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee. That patch of land isn't just scenic countryside. It's the ground Dollywood sits on today. So think about that for a second. 2 families planted less than a day's walk apart in the same corner of Tennessee, roughly 300 years ago. And 2 centuries later, their descendants end up on the same record label roster, the same red carpets, the same Grammy stage. Coincidence has a strange sense of humor sometimes. Miley hasn't been shy about how deep this relationship runs, blood or no blood. She's told interviewers that Dolly has been like a mother to her. And Dolly, for her part, has used almost identical language, describing herself as a kind of fairy godmother who ended up with a daughter she never expected. That's not typical industry small talk. That's someone describing family. And the closeness goes beyond sentiment. Miley has openly credited Dolly with shaping how she operates as an artist. In one recent interview, she admitted to picking up what she called a terrible habit from her godmother, promoting a project before it technically exists. Dolly's logic, according to Miley, was blunt. If you announce it first, nobody gets the chance to say no. Miley used exactly that strategy to help push a 20th anniversary special for Hannah Montana into existence, starting with a plan and a promise before there was a finished product to show for it. There's also a quieter thread running through this relationship, one that says a lot about who Dolly is behind the rhinestones. Both women have spoken about not being certain or not wanting biological children of their own. Dolly has said she and her husband simply never felt pulled toward it, that her career and touring life filled that space instead. Miley has echoed a similar sentiment in her own words, saying she still doesn't know if she wants kids, and that in some way, her fans already fill that role for her. It's the kind of overlap that doesn't get manufactured by a publicist. It's the kind of thing you only say if you actually mean it. Dolly's influence on Miley hasn't just been about music or mindset. It's also shown up in how Miley treats the next generation of artists coming up behind her. When pop singer Chappelle Rowan went public about struggling with fan harassment, Miley was one of the first to reach out. She's talked about feeling personally protective anytime she sees someone getting bullied in the industry, wanting to be the kind of mentor for younger artists that Dolly was for her. That's the pattern repeating itself. Somebody hands you a rope up the mountain, and eventually you turn around and do the same for somebody else. Even Dolly's own long-rumored biopic has become part of this story. She said publicly that Miley would be a strong choice to play her on screen, joking that Miley would need to put on a little weight and raise her singing voice by a few octaves to pull it off convincingly. It's a small detail, but it says something bigger. Dolly isn't just fond of Miley as a goddaughter. She sees her as someone capable of carrying the Parton legacy forward, literally playing her life on screen if it ever gets made. So here's where this leaves us. A friendship that started because 2 fathers knew each other in the Nashville music scene. A godmother relationship that became a real emotional bond over 3 decades of public and private moments. And now, a genealogical report revealing that underneath all of it, there was already a family connection nobody had ever traced, going back 300 years to the same small stretch of Tennessee mountainside. Maybe that's the real story here. Not that two famous women happen to be distantly related, but that in certain parts of this country, in certain small mountain communities, family lines have been quietly overlapping for centuries, long before anyone had a name for country music or a stage to perform it on. Dolly and Miley didn't create that bond. They just happened to be the ones who found it.